amendments. However, that's not to say that we wouldn't start to focus on that as we get closer to a convention.
But you know what, Jonathan, I needed an example, that's why I brought up the terms.
Right.
Just so I could understand,
Right.
you know,
Well, fiscal
that
restraint.
we have more power than really Congress if we get together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
If they make fiscal restraint with regard to, you know.
Limits
what?
on taxation and spending.
Yeah, all right, but I mean, with the entitlements, that's one thing. If they're talking about with the military spending, which is the only thing that is, by the way, covered in the Constitution, that's another thing. Okay? I don't know if I would, you know, so I would.
No, you could tie it into percentage of gross national product, you can do it.
I'm as conservative as they come, okay? I probably, with regard to the issue of term limits, I probably depart with most of my conservatives. I'm not too keen on that. I think frankly, I view elections as term limits to begin with. And if someone's doing a good job, you know, then it's fine, keep them in, you know.
Just because.
It works both ways. I
Right.
mean, you got Republicans, certain politicians that I dislike, you know, intensely, but they were for a long time. But there's others that have been in for a long time, but I do like.
Yeah, but
Okay,
the
so
Supreme Court, I mean, you're
I-
happy with the Supreme Court with the lifetime?
well, right now, yeah.
No, with
I
the
mean,
lifetime appointments.
just-
well, it's, again, it works, it's
I mean,
going in the other
Ruth
direction
Bader
now.
Ginsburg can hardly function.
Right, well, I mean, I don't know how much longer she's gonna be, I doubt it's gonna be very long.
But it
There's
shouldn't
gonna be
be
6
until they
straight,
die.
okay, and then it might even be 7 too.
But I
before it's
also
right.
understand you can impeach them also, I never knew that.
You can,
So the
it's
Supreme
just
Court
something that.
justices
Right.
have
You gotta
Yeah,
do
yeah.
something
Impeach
close.
them.
Thanks.
So I personally have been on both sides of the term limits argument because I do know that there are some good people, and the way it should be, the way it should act is, you know, we should come out and, you know, we should be the term limits, right? You know, and kind of.
Right.
But the problem is it's become so there's such an entrenched class in Washington D.C. that it's very, very difficult to vote out an incumbent. Very difficult. That's why really the way that there's change is when somebody retires or they die. And it's the same thing with the Supreme Court. You don't see people really leave the bench all that often. They usually die there, and the Senate. But just because there's something on here and a convention is called, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come out of the convention.
Right.
It just
Exactly.
defines what can be
Right,
discussed.
I see the flip side of the term limit, like Jeff Flake, that he's going to retire. Now he can do anything he wants because, you know, the hell with you voters. I'm not running for the office again.
Mhm.
So, you know, you limit to 2 terms, then, but he's left up, and then he'll do anything he can, and you can do a thing, you cannot do anything to them. So then, all these, you know, senators, representatives, they you know, that's the end of their term, then, you know, I don't have to be held responsible. So you're continuously being put on the trial or test because you want to continue to keep your office, then you do things more responsibly.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an interesting way of looking at it, something I certainly didn't think about. But that's we think no matter what, there should be a discussion about term limits. It's the only way we're going to have a discussion because Congress itself won't impose term limits. They won't impose term limits on the bureaucracy. And that's another thing too. I mean, if you think about some of the federal employees that we have at different departments and agencies and things of that nature, they're there forever as well. You know, there's nothing that really kind of holds anybody accountable with the federal government. That's why the term limits that we're talking about are not just for Congress and not just for the Supreme Court. We're talking about all federal employees. So that's something too to kind of consider as well.
How about also making them take Social Security instead of having their own?
Yeah.
And the same thing for their medical. If they had the same that we had, maybe they would think
Well, they
more
shouldn't
about
be
what
able
they
to
do.
exempt themselves from the laws they create. And that's what they
And
do.
That to me
I
is
think
most important.
I think a conversation like that would fall under limiting their scope, the power and scope of the
Right,
federal government.
exactly. Those are pretty broad.
Yes, they're
Points
broad
that
topics, but they're
are
also
current.
very focused on specific
Right.
Yeah.
subjects.
Right.
Jonathan, what are some of the high-profile people that are supporting
Oh, that's a good question.
is
We've seen a lot of support from very high-profile people.
Judge Napolitano just endorsed.
Yes,
it.
Judge Napolitano, Ben Shapiro, Ben Carson, Mark Levin, I'm trying to think of some other people.
Even Jeb Bush.
Marco Rubio, Rand Paul. So we've seen on the scale, at least on the conservative or Republican side, there being a wide array of people that have been attracted to this. I know Sarah Palin also endorsed. We have a sheet actually in there, piece of literature that shows a lot of the people that have endorsed it. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and take a look at that if you'd like.
Has there been any effort to get more national attention by going on some shows like Hannity or something like that, getting
Yes.
interviewed?
Yes, we've advertised with the Mark Levin show, with Rush Limbaugh, and with Sean Hannity. Mark Meckler has appeared on shows like Neil Cavuto. He was also on Steve Hilton's show, Mark Levin's show on Sunday nights, like Liberty and Levin. We had a full hour where Senator Coburn and Mark Meckler sat down with him. So we do try to get the word out there. Locally, we've had a couple of stories and some interviews. I was a part of I was interviewed for the Jersey Joe show, Joe Sangelo, that airs every Sunday at 10 p.m. on
That's what I
WOR.
heard, right, that's the one I heard.
So we're trying to make as much media opportunities and take as many of them as we can. But sometimes they just don't want to cover it.
Well, that was my follow-up question. Is there reception on their end to take hold of the story?
Some outlets, yes. Some outlets, they'd rather not talk about it. Some outlets, you even have people that try to say, oh, look what these crazy conservatives are doing. They're trying to rewrite the Constitution. You know, fire and brimstone and all the horrible things that you can imagine. So Article 5 is known, it's out there, and people are talking about it. Obviously, we want to kind of deliver it a little bit more and bring it up. Also, some other people, a lot of people on Fox News have really gotten behind us. Pete Hegseth is another person that's really supportive. He actually, we're trying, he may show up at the Mark Meckler event here in New Jersey. Steve Hilton of Fox News also is a big supporter of Convention of States, mentioned it in the book that he just recently published. So the people that do sit down with us, most of the time, are people that support us. Not always. You know, I know our team has also sat down with New Jersey News, and we had a program on there. Based on the interview, I didn't think that they were particularly fans of ours, but they sat down and had a conversation with us, which we really appreciate. We do. People like you, people like me, that's where most of our funding comes from. There are some donors and everything like that, but from what I understand, they're all available to you on the website, and there's a big rumor that the Koch brothers are involved. Mark has spoken to us personally. He's never met the Koch brothers. He doesn't know the Koch brothers. They're not involved with our organization at all. We don't get any money or anything from the Koch brothers. We would love to get money from them because we'd have a lot more money, but most of the funding for Convention of States comes from people like you and me.
Do you have any factions who are working towards stopping the movement?
Discrediting.
Yes. Eagle Forum, the John Birch Society, and our good friend George Soros has many different organizations working against the Convention of
They're
States
all
project.
patriotic names.
Another person that also came out against the Convention of States project is Hillary Clinton.
I'm surprised.
What about Turning Point USA?
Turning Point USA, some of the people that run it have endorsed us, like Charlie Kirk. Yes. And that's why we were actually happy to be able to co-sponsor the event at Rider University with their chapter.
Is that organization related to
They started before Trump, but from what I understand, and I'm not an expert on their organization, Charlie Kirk has become very friendly with President Trump, but I'm pretty sure it operates independently.
So what does the president say then?
We haven't had a chance to speak to him about it just
Who?
yet. President Trump.
No, Mark Meckler met him.
Yeah, he met him and
And that,
shook his hand,
Yeah.
but we just haven't had a chance to really have a conversation about convention estates with him. But let's put it this way, a lot of people in his administration are friendly with Mark Meckler, so conversations are happening.
How can you fight against someone like Soros?
How are the people?
Because, I mean,
The more Americans that know about it and are educated about it and are willing to stand with us, power in
But this is
numbers.
supposed to be not conservative or liberal, not Republican
Not
or
really.
Democrat.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Right,
They
and that's
are.
that's gonna be a problem. That, I see that as a problem.
They are beating him though, he's not, he's had successes, but he's certainly,
who are you talking about, Soros?
yeah. I mean, he's,
Well, his organizations all have patriotic names.
But that is an
Yeah.
important point,
You're
and
not
it's
gonna get
something,
anywhere with just Republicans.
you're
You need
absolutely right.
everybody.
In order for this to be
The
legitimate,
states,
it
you're
needs
talking
to be,
states.
yes, it
Right.
needs to be
It's gotta be everybody.
beyond partisan politics.
Yeah, exactly.
You're absolutely right. And that's why some of the things that we're talking about, they're more common sense than they are Republican issues or
Exactly,
Democrat
yeah.
issues.
They're American
We're talking about empowering the states.
The states.
I think what Mark Meckler said it great one time when he was having an interview. He said, Vermont, is a great state, very to the left, right, very blue state. If they want to have, if they want to have single-payer health care, God bless them. That's their right. They should be able to have single-payer health care. But if Texas wants to have a different health care system,
That's
why
their
can't
right.
Texas have a different health care
That's
system?
right, that's the
So
way it should be.
it's about reestablishing the power of the
The
states
states,
in
right.
our government.
Like education, right? Good
Yes.
example.
Yes.
you mentioned Vermont, Vermont is a very funny state.
Oh,
I have a
that's
home,
the
we have a
way
home up
states-
there, okay? They have Leahy and the other one.
Bernie Sanders.
But, and all these other, however,
Republican, he-
one thing, for instance, Vermont is very, if you want to buy a gun in Vermont, it's very easy,
Yes.
it's easy to get a gun in Vermont than it is in a place like Texas or
Yes.
Alabama.
Yep.
Okay, it's very easy,
Yeah.
they'll accept anything.
Right, and that's the beauty of
Still looks
states
like
in
a
general,
man.
is
Yeah, I know,
that you
it's
have
funny.
this very blue state, but they're very friendly to the Second Amendment.
Not when it comes to guns.
It shouldn't be where the federal government makes the decisions for us, and we're holding our breaths every 4 years because, who's gonna be the president, and what judges are they gonna appoint, and what are the judges gonna decide on this issue or that issue? That's not the way
States don't
the
realize they have a
government
lot of
was
power.
intended to operate. That's not how it's supposed to be. And I, for one, don't want it to be that way. I hope that all of you feel the same way.
Yeah, we
Jonathan,
have power, we have to find out how to use it.
Michael Moore was on CNN last week. He said within 2 years, he said, party gets back in power, they can wipe out, we can totally disenfranchise ourselves from the Constitution. It's another one you gotta watch out for,
No,
You already have
absolutely,
in some ways.
absolutely.
big time.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm glad you're there, I thought you left.
I'm close to the door, but I'm
He's
not-
close to the door, but not at it.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do you think is behind all these immigrants marching towards the United States?
Michael Moore and George
Nothing new,
Soros.
they've been doing it for
I
years.
don't know.
I mean, and they're doing it, they're supposed to arrive before Christmas. Of course, it's going to make Trump look terrible and let people, maybe shooting people, which is awful.
No, they're not
but-
gonna do that, they can't do that.
Well, they can't, but what are they gonna do?
Who's gonna
They're
shoot?
gonna put
Well,
in,
Who's gonna shoot who?
they're not gonna shoot, but they're gonna put in barbed wire and stuff. They're gonna-
Well, that's what they've done in
They,
Texas.
they're gonna say, they're gonna have one.
Yeah.
I'll be honest,
Yeah,
I know it's coming. I don't know enough about the issue to say for one way or another who's funding them.
I think it's
But
a
it's-
conspiracy, I really do.
It's a major problem, our immigration system in general.
We have
But that, I
laws,
guess, is
enforce
And
it.
it's a separate topic.
But who is supporting them coming? I mean,
George
how do they?
Soros.
Oh,
Yeah, probably.
LGBT.
Unfortunately,
There also.
there's also support the Republican
Just
side
the other
for
day,
it.
they were saying
Because
about 80 of them.
I always think it's the
LGBT.
agricultural industry, okay, because they
Found
you know,
each other
in
the group.
That's their
Separated.
motivation.
No, I-
They're being
I-
And
discriminated
that's because
against.
Bush was
Got their own bus
favorably
and went
laws,
over to the California
which
one.
is one
They're
thing I
at
was
the California,
asking
Tijuana now.
It's a very loaded issue, because there are so many people that are in favor of some sort of
He
legalization.
was?
But I think
Okay.
ultimately,
I
this is
don't
me
follow
speaking personally,
Yeah,
you
no,
have to
it's-
at least solidify the border and get that under control, and then we can kind of figure out about what to do with the people that are here illegally. But first step should be solidifying the border. That's
Yeah,
just my
I mean, it's
personal.
obvious that Democrats want to vote, that's very clear, I mean, anyone can see that. But I think there's also, they're having help from certain parts within the Republican Party.
It's a simple thing. You enforce the laws. If you don't like the laws, you change the laws or make them better.
Correct.
But if the laws are on the book.
Or you leave.
You gotta enforce them. You can't ignore laws.
Right, right.
Simple as that.
It's one of the things, they talk about Trump and closing the borders and all that, building walls. When Clinton was in office, he spoke in front of Congress
Yeah,
and
nice.
said he wanted to build walls, and everyone
And I
stood up and
agree.
clapped for that.
And I agree.
So how do you have one person wants it, they like it, but the other guy, no, we don't want it because we don't like
They all
it.
of a sudden found out that they needed new votes.
That's
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Any other questions about convention of states or anything else?
To the convention, right. Not getting involved in all this stuff.
Yeah, we could be here all night talking about politics and not get anywhere. Thank you.
Now we're going to have coffee, decaf, and tea, and lots of goodies, so please partake.
Thank you very much.
Give you room to get up.
You're awful quiet.
Well, you need to listen, really.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I actually was the person that met with him about sponsoring this.
You must be a history.
Well, the funny
Well,
thing
you know, when
is,
you try to represent the legislators, you're gonna have
right now I am
to
fourth grade social studies teacher. I taught
Once I called and
kindergarten
they said I
for
was
17
in the
years.
future with this time I was, they set up a meeting with me, I sat down with him, I talked to him about it, he said, so I made the call right now, and he got up and made the call right away. He's a great guy. He's actually, he's probably the one legislator that we have right now that really.
Teaching and kind of like,
Wonderful, but do they pay you more to do this?
no,
I haven't had a chance to meet him yet.
Very interesting.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is like I really became more interested. Once I had to know, because one of the first meetings was your place. And
No, I don't.
I had to like just learn so much.
Yes.
You know, because I was going through level. I said, oh my God, I can't believe I come this far, like in need and not know. Well, like I was trying to learn how to do my that. I don't understand if they stop teaching it. I just, you know, even in college, it's so much about our U.S. government. You found
We had to learn. I mean, I was very interested, not all of it, I must say. I remember when I was married, had children. Came over
Oh, they absolutely, they have so much power.
they're really good.
Well, one of the amendments, well, that's Article 5. One amendment, the 10th amendment, is what says that anything not mentioned in this constitution applies to signed articles of the state. That doesn't mean. And it should.
And I think I read
Healthcare, a lot of those
I'm leaving. We're going to have science, okay, everyone's coming to my house, and we're going to prepare for the region.
I remember reading that. But how do you get the things together to do it? That's, so you need the same thing together. Exactly.
I came to buy here just recently for the first time.
So how long have you been doing this? 4 years?
So, yes, my fourth year.